At 70, Elif had lived a full life. She had worked hard, raised a family, and seen the world through the eyes of a loving wife, mother, and grandmother. Yet, at this moment, as she stood in the quiet of her living room, surrounded by photographs of a life well lived, Elif felt an unexpected restlessness stirring within her. Something was missing. Her children had grown up and moved far away, and her beloved husband, Amit, had passed a year ago. The house, once alive with the sounds of family and laughter, now echoed only silence. Every day felt the same. The routines she once loved now felt like chains, keeping her from experiencing the freedom she had always dreamed of. One crisp autumn morning, Elif sat by the window, looking out at the changing leaves. The world was transitioning into a new season, and for the first time in months, she felt a spark of inspiration. She no longer wanted to just exist in her quiet home. She wanted to feel alive again. The question that lingered in her mind was, why not now? With that thought, Elif made a decision that would change the course of her life. She was going to embrace her freedom. The question was, how? Elif's decision was bold. It wasn't like her to act impulsively, but something inside her had shifted. That afternoon, she called her best friend, Zeynep, who had known her for decades. Zeynep was the type of friend who could always see the silver lining, no matter the situation. "I think I'm going to sell this house, Zeynep," Elif said, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm ready for something new." Zeynep was quiet for a moment, as if absorbing the weight of Elif's words. Then, with a chuckle, she replied, "Well, it's about time, Elif. You've spent enough years taking care of everyone else. It's your turn now." With Zeynep's encouragement, Elif started making plans. She decided to sell her large home in the suburbs, where she had raised her children and spent her married life. It was time to downsize, to live simply and freely. But Elif wasn't just looking for a smaller house. She was looking for a new way of life, something she had never allowed herself to explore before. As Elif packed up her belongings, memories flooded her mind. The old kitchen table where she had sat with her family for countless dinners, the living room couch where she and Amit had shared their quiet evenings, the garden she had tended to with such care. It was all so familiar, so comforting. But now, that comfort felt like a cage. The decision to leave was harder than she had imagined. Even though she felt the pull to embrace freedom, there was a deep fear that tugged at her heart. What would life be like without the house? What if I regret this? What if I'm alone? For days, Elif wrestled with her fears. She walked through the rooms of the house, touching the familiar items, trying to hold on to the memories. But with each passing day, she began to feel lighter, as if the act of letting go was not just physical, but emotional. She realized that her attachment to the past was keeping her from moving forward. It was time to release the fear and embrace the unknown. The world outside her door was waiting, and she had so much more to experience. Elif found herself at a crossroads. The house was sold, and her belongings were packed. The next step was the hardest yet, moving into a small apartment in the city. She had chosen a quiet neighborhood, one she had always admired for its charm and sense of community. But now, as she stood on the threshold of her new life, she felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. The first night in the new apartment was strange. The silence was different here. It wasn't the silence of solitude, but the silence of new beginnings. Elif spent the evening sitting by the window, gazing out at the city lights. The streets below were busy, full of life, and she felt a part of it, for the first time in years. As she settled into her new space, Elif made a vow to herself. She would no longer allow fear or doubt to dictate her life. She would embrace each day with curiosity and open-mindedness. The next morning, she ventured out into the city. She had no particular destination, just a desire to explore. She wandered through parks, visited coffee shops, and smiled at the people she passed. For the first time in years, Elif felt free. Free from expectations. Free from the responsibilities that had once defined her. She was beginning to realize that freedom wasn't just about where she lived or what she owned. It was about how she chose to experience life. Elif's new life in the city opened her eyes to possibilities she had never considered. She began taking classes at the local community center, something she had always wanted to do but never had the time for. She enrolled in painting, photography, and even yoga. With each new activity, Elif felt her confidence grow. The joy of learning and creating was something she had forgotten, but now it was filling her life with purpose. One afternoon, while she was at the community center, she met a group of women who were also in their 60s and 70s. They were part of a weekly book club, and after a few conversations, they invited Elif to join. She hesitated at first, unsure of whether she belonged, but soon she realized that they weren't just a book club. They were a support group, a source of encouragement, and a reminder that she wasn't alone in her journey. Through her new friendships, Elif discovered that the key to finding purpose in her later years wasn't about staying busy. It was about staying engaged with life, open to new experiences, and willing to connect with others. These women, many of whom had faced their own challenges in life, became her companions in this new chapter. As the months passed, Elif began to feel a sense of fulfillment she had never experienced before. She realized that this new chapter wasn't just about letting go of her past. It was about creating a future that was uniquely hers. She had always defined herself by her roles as a mother, wife, and grandmother. But now, she was redefining herself as an individual. Elif found the courage to step outside her comfort zone. She signed up for volunteer work at a local shelter for women, something that had always been close to her heart. Giving back to the community gave her a sense of purpose and connected her with others who shared her values. She also started traveling, something she had never done much of during her busy years of raising children and running a household. Her first solo trip was to a quiet coastal town, where she spent her days walking along the beach and reflecting on her journey. The feeling of freedom, of being unencumbered by the responsibilities that had once ruled her life, was intoxicating. As Elif's journey of self-discovery continued, she found that her life, once filled with the hustle and bustle of daily responsibilities, now felt quieter and more peaceful. It was as if the noise of the past had faded into the background, allowing her to hear the subtle rhythm of her own desires. She no longer felt the pressure to be everything to everyone, and instead she found joy in the simple things. Reading a good book in the park, enjoying a hot cup of tea in the morning sunlight, or taking long walks through the city, watching the seasons change. Elif realized that she didn't need grand adventures or big milestones to feel fulfilled. The small, everyday moments brought her more happiness than she ever imagined. She had spent so many years chasing after things that didn't truly matter: career achievements, material possessions, and the expectations of others. But now, she was learning to embrace simplicity, and in doing so, she discovered a deep contentment that had always eluded her. Her days became a dance between solitude and connection, a balance that allowed her to nurture herself while still engaging with the world. She spent afternoons with her book club, evenings volunteering at the shelter, and weekends traveling to nearby towns. The joy of simply being present in her own life, without the distractions of the past, filled her heart with peace. Elif also began to reconnect with nature. She found herself spending more time outdoors, walking through parks, tending to her small balcony garden, and even picking fresh flowers from the local market. Each time she touched the earth, she felt more grounded. It was as though nature itself was teaching her how to live in harmony with the seasons, how to flow with the rhythms of life without forcing anything. One of the most profound lessons Elif learned in her new life was the importance of embracing the unknown. As she ventured into uncharted territory, both physically and emotionally, she found that fear often accompanied new beginnings. But rather than letting fear hold her back, Elif learned to face it with courage. One evening, as she was reflecting on her life, Elif realized how much she had avoided taking risks in the past. She had always been careful, measured, and deliberate. But now she understood that life was about embracing uncertainty, trusting herself, and taking leaps of faith. Whether it was trying a new hobby, signing up for a solo trip, or striking up a conversation with a stranger, Elif found joy in stepping outside her comfort zone. One day, she received an invitation to an art exhibit opening at a local gallery. The event was hosted by an old acquaintance from her early years, a woman she hadn't seen in decades. Elif hesitated at first. She hadn't attended such an event in years and wasn't sure if she belonged. But something within her urged her to go. She remembered the feeling of walking into a room full of people, the thrill of new experiences, and the sense of belonging that came from pushing herself beyond her self-imposed limits. Elif dressed in her best clothes, applied a bit of makeup, and took a deep breath before heading out the door. That evening, she realized how far she had come. The woman she saw in the mirror was no longer defined by her past or her circumstances. She was a woman who had chosen to embrace the unknown, to venture beyond the safe confines of her home, and to live fully once again. As Elif settled into her new life, she began to reflect on the legacy she wanted to leave behind. She had lived for others for so long, tending to her family, her husband, and her home. But now, she wanted to leave something different behind. A legacy that was uniquely hers, one that spoke to the strength she had found in herself and the love she had shared with others. She began to write down her thoughts and experiences in a journal. She wrote about her memories of raising her children, her love for Amit, and the lessons she had learned over the years. She wrote about the mistakes she had made and the wisdom she had gained through overcoming adversity. But most importantly, she wrote about the power of embracing life at any age. Her journal became a collection of her life stories, a guide for anyone who might one day find themselves in a similar situation. Elif knew that her children, though grown and busy with their own lives, would someday look back at her words and find comfort in them. Her legacy wasn't just in the material things she had accumulated. It was in the love she had given and the wisdom she had shared. But Elif didn't stop there. She began to mentor young women in her community, offering them the advice and guidance she had once sought. She became involved in local charities, volunteering her time to help those in need. Through these acts of kindness, Elif found that her legacy was living on in the people she touched, in the lives she helped change, and in the love she continued to give. Years passed, and Elif's life continued to unfold in beautiful and unexpected ways. She had traveled, made new friends, and embraced every opportunity that came her way. She had learned that aging wasn't about looking back in regret, but about living fully in the present, no matter how many years had passed. One peaceful evening, as Elif sat on her balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, she felt a deep sense of contentment. Her journey had come full circle. She had faced the challenges of aging, loss, and loneliness, and had emerged stronger, more fulfilled, and more at peace than ever before. Elif had found her freedom, not in escaping her past, but in embracing it and learning from it. She had discovered that the key to a happy, fulfilling life wasn't about avoiding change or hardship, but about welcoming it with open arms. The final chapter of her life was not one of fear or regret, but one of acceptance, gratitude, and love. As she gazed at the stars above, Elif whispered softly to herself, "I've lived well, and I'm ready for whatever comes next." As we wrap up Elif's journey, we are reminded of the power that comes with embracing life at any age. Elif's story teaches us that freedom, fulfillment, and peace are not reserved for the young, but are available to all who choose to step into the unknown with courage, embrace change, and find purpose in the simple moments of life. Aging, as Elif discovered, is not a time of retreat, but an opportunity to embrace new beginnings. It's about finding strength within ourselves, letting go of the past, and making room for new experiences, new connections, and personal growth. We are never too old to redefine who we are or to start a new chapter in our lives. Through Elif's courage, we see that the key to living a fulfilled life isn't about avoiding challenges, but about how we face them. It's about learning to let go, finding joy in simplicity, and making the choice to live with an open heart, no matter how many years have passed. Let Elif's journey serve as a reminder to all of us that it's never too late to discover the freedom and joy that comes with truly living in the present. No matter where you are in life, there are always new adventures, lessons, and moments of peace waiting for you. Remember, the journey of life is never over. It's simply a new opportunity waiting to be embraced. Thank you for joining us on Elif's journey. May it inspire you to live your life to the fullest, no matter the season you're in.